morning, everybody. So, tell me what happens after we have this lecture today. Lunch. Okay. So what better way to start that appetizing event than talk about food as medicine? So, what is food as medicine? And that gives up the first slide. Okay. Food as medicine, to me, is a very personal experience. As you've heard, I've been practicing in the field of nutrition for over 15 years, both as a gastroenterologist and really as a medical nutritionist. And I really have seen the power of food as medicine in really transforming the health of my patients over the years. And I want to share with you a personal experience where it really helped transform myself before we get on and talk about the power of these foods. Is that back in 2002, 2003, I started to develop what appeared to be multiple sclerosis symptoms. And one of the docs, God bless her heart, thought the best thing to do was a lumbar puncture. And so, of course, I signed up. I thought it was the best thing to do, but it didn't go right. And unfortunately, I wound up in a hospital and I had what they call a CSF leak. And what happened was I needed what they call blood patches attached to the leak, where they take blood out of your arm and they shoot it in your spine. And you know, in my profession, they say doctors have the worst luck as patients, and that really passed on to me, quite severely. And what happened was some of the blood went actually into the central spine where it doesn't belong, and began this autoimmune reaction that I had. Some term it arachnoiditis. It actually floored me and disabled me for a good year and a half, put me in a hospital a couple of times, and was out of work, lost my job in New York, and I wasn't getting better. I wound up going from pain center to pain center on narcotics and all kinds of painkillers, couldn't get better. My mother said, Gerard, that's what she calls me. No one else does. No one else can get away with that one. She said, Gerard, she said, you know what? You should practice what you preach and listen to yourself. I said, you know what, she's right. I've gotten people better through the years. I'm going to start eating a whole foods diet. I'm going to get back onto the program that I really began with. And all of a sudden, within a few months, I started getting up and around, and I'm here. And since being here, I've been even more of an advocate. For the last 5 years, I've been at Hopkins to really empower people to understand that one of the most fundamental things they can do to get better is through food as medicine. And that's why I'm here today to really, let's say, help you understand that there's a power in the fork, right? I mean, we as doctors, we get very used to writing prescriptions, but the first thing is to transform the diet. And I partner with nutritionists all around the country and locally to really help people transform themselves through their diet. So the first slide is really nice to show you, is that do you think that calories or junk in equals junk out? The answer is no. When I went to medical school and through many decades, we were always taught, even when I worked out in the gym, and used to talk to the nutritionists who worked with the trainers, and they would encourage people that to just get the calories in, just take a lot of protein, eat your egg whites. But I think what people have lost through the years, and now we're kind of seeing the research evolve, is that, yes, I mean, there's really some quality chemicals, let's say, some quality functional aspects of food that are very powerful. And that's what I'm going to summarize for you today. Okay, I guess I have control over the slides. What I did. All right. Oops. How are we doing back there? Here we go. So when you look at the data, and the data is sobering, is that when people tell you that nutrition doesn't play a role in your health or in improving your health, and realize there'll be a few slides that will be kind of new. Gave the handout in maybe a week or two ago, and I just kind of tweaked it up a bit. So if you don't see the slides totally there, just please follow along, but most of them are in your handout, okay? But the point is that nutrition does play a role in health and disease. And this slide, which again is from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, best illustrates that point. Here it says, that nutrition plays a significant role in the progression and onset in 6 out of 10 of the leading causes of death. That's a powerful message. And certainly, we're going to review the data, how many foods can prevent that or slow the onset of some of these major diseases. And that's the power of food as medicine. So what is food as medicine? Food as medicine to me is the spirit of a good science. I mean, we're talking about evidence-based research that's been done on these foods. So it's good science, but it's an art to practice. Right? As nutritionists, there is an art to practicing it. And finally, is to share with you those nourishing experiences in your kitchen. And that has been a place that has been unfortunately abandoned over the last decade. Is that now we find that half of the meals in America are eaten outside the home. So we've really abandoned the power of creating our own food and creativity and really having those nourishing experiences in our own home because we're always on the go, all of us. Okay. So what is the power of food? It's quite deep. Okay, so basically what we know is that there's a whole field of now medicine called epigenetics, nutrigenomics, where we now know the food affects elements of our DNA, our protein metabolism, so the food itself really acts on a cellular level. And that's a very powerful message that the food is just not junk in, junk out, calories in, calories out. It's what's in the food is going to affect your DNA, and as you really well know now, it's what's in your DNA that's going to really determine the outcome of your health. So this slide shows you a little bit more in detail. I call it food dynamics, okay? So you eat a nice healthy meal here. You can see the chicken breast, the vegetables, etc., and the tea. As you can see here is that what's in there, we're going to talk about the specific biochemicals that are in the food that can affect both the inflammatory response, and we know that inflammation is really involved in many diseases that we see, chronic degenerative diseases. There's over 125 million Americans who have a chronic degenerative disease. Many, if not most of them, are on the basis of inflammation or chronic inflammation as the cause, including cancer. Also, these nutrients also affect the growth cycle of the cell. They affect the way we repair ourselves. They affect the way we metabolize, the way the DNA is regulated, and the way we make our hormones. So there's a lot of things that take into account how these foods can impact on your overall health and metabolism. We also know that when the diet goes astray, that there's certain diseases, and certainly we can look at this slide in detail, in terms of some of them are becoming epidemic in this country. These are largely diseases of diet. Certainly diabetes and obesity, which are becoming epidemics in this country. Cardiovascular disease is strongly linked to diet. Certainly digestive diseases, which I generally like to talk about in detail, but time is limited today. But many of these digestive diseases are related to the way we eat our food, okay? And certainly osteoporosis, which unfortunately affects many women, and certain neuropsychiatric and neurological disorders, they're all affected by food. So we're going to go back in time as we kind of talk about what is maybe the optimal diet. And many authors have written on the optimal diet, from Andrew Weil, Laurent Cordain, who we're going to talk about, Michael Pollan, and many others, okay? And what we're seeing in common is that many, many years ago, when we first evolved, is that we were hunter-gatherers. We were active, we were on our feet all day, we're chasing our food, chasing the wild game for our meat, and we were burning maybe up to 6,000 calories a day in terms of our metabolism. And so we were quite active in trying to fulfill our metabolic needs. And so what we see here is that over time, in the early 1900s, we were still quite active. We didn't have cars so much at that point, right? We didn't have transportation. We were just really walking from place to place. And so we were still burning maybe 3,000 calories a day. And now, today, maybe 1,800, 2,000 calories is what our metabolic needs are. So as those metabolic needs have slowed down and our eating has increased because we're becoming more sedentary, we can go back into the previous slide and see how we become a very obese and diabetic nation. But what we ate back in those days, before we had agriculture, and that came around the year 10,000 BC, is that we ate off the land, right? If you look at the Paleolithic era, man would go chase his food, eat the nuts, eat the wild vegetables and the fruits, and that was the diet.